We are rapidly approaching drywall, and one of the key things to remember before putting drywall on is putting blocking in the wall or solid pieces of lumber in order to screw stuff through the wall that need to have some strength to them. We're talking handrails, TV mounts, cabinets, and a host of other applications that I'm going to go through on this video and talk all about blocking. This video is dedicated to Elena's grandfather, Nono. He recently passed, but one of the things he would always tell us whenever he saw us was about blocking in the wall. He built his own house about 50 years ago, roughly, and some of our very last conversations with him were about blocking and that we should not forget to put blocking where the curtains go. So thank you to Nono for the wisdom over the years. We know that you are watching this, and in this video, we're gonna put some blocking in. Before getting to the fun stuff like cabinets and toilet paper holder, we have to do the more extensive, boring stuff, which is blocking for our drywall corners to nail to. In order to keep the corners from cracking over long term as the house shifts and moves in the seasons, all the edges of the drywall need a solid piece of wood to screw to. In this example, this is a strip, just a 2x4 ripped in half that I'm putting up against the wall that is even with the rest of our dormer ceiling, which we have yet to insulate. But I wanted to get the wall insulated first because it would be a pain to insulate after this strip was here. But now that it's insulated, I set the strip at the same plane and we are ready to put the ceiling insulation in. Without this strip, the ceiling drywall would be basically free floating over here, and that would not be good long term. We have to think about the same thing in all the vertical room corners as well. Like this corner is actually not too bad. I'll just add a little piece of 1x to bridge this small gap so that there's at least 1.5 inches of surface for the edge of both of those sheets of drywall to fasten to. But here's the situation in the corner that we were just in where there is only solid wood on one side of the corner and not here. So I'm going to have to slip a piece of 1x or a 1/2 inch piece of leftover zip or something behind here, screw through to catch that, and that way there will be an L of wood here for drywall to screw to. I batch cut all my vertical drywall nailers, really dug deep into the scrap bin for this one, including a piece of plywood that's been sitting out on our pallet table for quite a while. But I have them grouped by room. I went through and measured every room for all the different corner lengths they needed. Some had blocking in the wall or slope ceiling, so the lengths vary quite a bit, and some were really tall, so I needed to piece them, so some are like kind of a two-part for some of the corners. So I'll take these room by room, start installing them one at a time, and hopefully get done this part pretty soon. This is the boring part of blocking, I would say. And we can move on to the fun stuff. I'm glad I waited till after installation for putting these in. A lot of folks have the framers put these in and they'll use like full 2x solid blocking. First of all, that takes up a heck of a lot of room in the corner that's really not necessary for just a piece of wood for a drywall to screw to. And second, it makes it a lot harder to get the insulation back in this corner. So if I can just barely compress the insulation for my 7/16 piece of zip here, slide it in, and then I'm gonna take a 2.5 inch just general screw and throw 1 or 2 of them in. I'll just get it right here in the corner, just sort of toenail it right from the corner of the adjacent stud. Takes a couple times to get it to pull nice and tight, but that screw pulls that thing flat with the back of that stud, and so it is nicely in plane with this wall. And I like to take my 2-foot level and make sure that I'm sitting evenly with these studs. If I'm not, I'll just use a little piece of shim, just wedge it right under the edge of that, and like a little teeter-totter or a seesaw, when I pull the screw in again, it'll teeter it back further into the wall so it sits flush with everything else. But as long as the back of this corner stud is true with this wall, which in most cases it's pretty darn close or close enough for framing tolerances, you don't need to do anything like that. Just screw it on and you're good to go. Another reason I wanted to make these full vertical strips is to assist with our installation of the Sega vapor barrier we're putting up, or the vapor control layer. We'll be able to run the double-sided tape on both sides of the corner. That way we can get a nice, tight, crisp corner with that vapor control paper. If you don't and you leave that corner rounded, there's a good chance the drywallers will either cut or accidentally puncture that corner trying to push the drywall flush into the corner to get a nice tight seam. So if we have 2 vertical strips all the way from sill to top and we can get a nice tight crease on that, that will be even better. Plus the drywallers don't have to think about where they're driving screws. They can go anywhere in this corner. Literally some bird poop from keeping these in the barn, my mom's barn, for storage. Oh my gosh. Of course, as I drive these screws in, I'm keeping an eye out for any wires or anything that might be nearby. That would not be good to puncture one of those at this stage of the game. I just try to kind of re-fluff the insulation after I'm done. I'm in the bathroom now. I've got some shower stuff mocked up, our preform pan, our curb, and I'm considering where I need blocking for our door track. We are doing a double sliding glass door over the shower, and that top track needs a place that's really sturdy to mount to. In this case, I have no studs in between where the curb is gonna sit. So I'm gonna make sure I got something solid up top and down low here. I don't know if there's something down low that's gotta get mounted for a slider, to be honest, but I just want to have it anyway in the case we do like a fixed piece or a hinge or something that we can't see right now down the road in case the slider doesn't work out. I'm thinking a piece of 2x10 flat in here would be just fine. And then up here, I'm at 79 inches above the height of my curb. It's like 81 from the sill plate, but that's where the top track approximately should land. So I'm gonna get something solid in here. Problem is this guy, my vent pipe. I have to figure out how I'm gonna mess with this. I only have like an inch of clearance between the edge of the stud and the vent pipe. So I'm thinking a piece of plywood, like 3/4 inch ply, and then a couple nailers on either side to fasten it to. I think that's about the best I'm gonna be able to do. And we just gotta be cognizant we don't drive screws past 3/4 inch engagement into the wall so as to not hit this vent. Additionally, I gotta think about where the hydroband board for our shower is gonna stop and where the drywall is gonna start, and I need to have something solid there. So luckily, by the 5 foot mark where my hydroband board's length maxes out, I have a stud right here. I'm gonna cut the drywall right here, start the hydroband right here on this stud, and then I'll have to do like a tape mud joint in between and float it out, smooth it, paint it all, and it should be a pretty invisible joint. Unfortunately, I'm not as lucky on the other side, and this stud is pretty much right where my door is, where the curb is. But I do not want to trust this single 2x4 being the sole location for that. So I'm going to block this out on either side with a 2x4. So we have a, I guess, 4.5 inch thick, wide piece of wood in the wall that we could screw to, basically the full width of the curb, so the door can float anywhere on top of that curb and still hit solid wood when we screw the mounts in. And for this one, I'm gonna end the hydroband board in this second piece of blocking here on the outside of the shower. I'd prefer to do it a little bit further out so that that tape and mud joint doesn't put a slight hump in the wall that the door track is then gonna have to sit on top of, but I don't really have that much of a choice here. I don't really wanna put, I guess I could put another stud like out here or something. I don't know. I'll think about that one a little bit more. All this stuff sounds like it's simple and I'm just rattling this off the top of my head, but the truth is I spent about an hour to 2 hours, I would say, off camera, measuring, thinking, imagining how stuff's gonna be, just really critically trying to envision what this is all gonna look like at the end of the day. This is just one little shower situation here, but this kind of thing just exists everywhere. So my mind has been running, 100 miles an hour since this project started for this basic reason. But it's all good. Figure out one little problem at a time and it all adds up to a successful project. Here's my little blocking setup for this. Another good way I could think of to fasten it in here. Once I get the 2x4s tacked in, I'll take this off so I can better fasten them without this plate in the way, and then I'll put the plate back on. This block and the one right next to it are for towel hooks. I don't think this is at any special height, I just put them at a spot that seemed comfortable for a towel to hang. Another spot to think about here is the toilet paper holder, but ours is going into the side of our vanity, which of course is already a solid mounting surface. Next is blocking for our future potential window treatments. Elena and I walked around, talked about what windows we thought we'd want curtains on, and then decided about where we thought the brackets would be placed. So we're taking into consideration the height of our trim, how far above the trim the curtain rod would be roughly, and we kind of decided about 9 inches above the windows and maybe like 6 or 7 outside the side of the window is where we would roughly put a bracket. Now, of course, windows are going to be on exterior walls, and I do not want to interfere with my insulation by putting a thick old piece of 2x blocking in here. So the comments are going to hate me for it because they think I use too many pocket screws, but I am using pocket screws in plywood for my blocking. So I just made measurements around each window for the distance between my studs because they do vary a little bit. This is 3/4 inch plywood, which is honestly kind of overkill for what it is, but it's what I had because I'm using it for all of the cabinets and everything else. So I've just bought a couple sheets and just 3 pocket holes. It's all it's going to take to get this guy in here and make a good solid backing for curtain rods.
Make sure everything's nice and flush. Dang, that thing could support an iron curtain, especially with this piece of blocking underneath of it. We're in the main bedroom, and this is our closet opening. It's a pretty big wide opening, 54 inches wide, I want to say. And we're envisioning a barn door track with a set of double barn doors for this closet. So we need a good solid way to support that track. And I'm going to use some 2x6s for this. These are just leftovers from framing. Went and measured and cut a whole bunch of them. And they're gonna fit in here just like that. I'm just gonna use the framing nailer because it's quick. These will be good solid backers to mount the track to. This is how I kind of organize my measurements. I go through and I write them all down in sequence. That way when I come back to the door, I know in the same sequence where I need to position the blocking at. I live on my Apple Notes, seriously. Like, all of this blocking has been, you know, kind of figured out ahead of time. I measure everything, go find the pieces, mark them, cut them, bring them up, lay them out, all in assembly line fashion. That's the best way I can figure out how to do it as a solo operation. Probably don't even need a nail to hold that one in. Nailing this last block up here, and just learned a great lesson about why I wear safety glasses all the time. Shooting that nail in right there, this knot just completely shattered and a big old chunk of it went right into my safety glasses. You can never be too careful, especially when using power tools, that's for sure. That all looks good though. Just got to cut one last little triangle to wedge up in this little spot, just in case. That would be my luck. We go to mount this thing and that is the spot where the fastener's got to be, next to the door. And then on to the next one. We have to do one just like this down in the garage. That center wall has a 6-foot opening in it, and we're going to do barn doors over that as well. Next up on the blocking list is lighting blocking in this ceiling in this garage. We've already got one piece of C-up, and I actually already did some of it off camera. You can see it right there behind that electrical box. But we're gonna be using some long Halo strip lights, or actually I think Metalux is the brand. They're owned by Cooper Lighting, same as Halo. And we'll be doing 3 rows in the garage, 1, 2, and 3. You can barely see it all the way down there. But I mounted these boxes in the same orientation as the lights are gonna go. And as you can tell, they are parallel with the joist. So there's nothing for that light to mount to as it comes this way. And we're linking together 3 lights, 2 8-footers and a 4-footer. I could use drywall anchors for something like this, but I don't really want to just puncture the Sega with nothing behind it if I can help it. And I think the wood blocking will be a little bit more solid anyway. So I'm gonna go ahead and pocket screw some 2x4s between the eye joists, and that will give us a good solid backing. This is the manual for the light we're using. The tricky part here is the entrance of the wire into the light and the mounting holes are all in specific locations. So I dug into the manual a little bit to see where everything is and made this little diagram of that 8-foot light. There's multiple knockouts, 4, 8, 24 inches along the 8-foot light. However, this one here is, I wrote the best because it's the closest to where the driver's gotta be. There's only so much wire from that driver, and that's where you wanna be to have enough slack. So I want to use that knockout. That's going to be centered on top of my junction box to hide the junction boxes. And then the screws are 10 inches in from the end. So 10 inches and then 76 inches. It's a 96-inch light total. Of course, for the 4-foot light, it's way different. The screws are like 5 7/16 of an inch in. I don't really get that. But I don't have to worry about the knockout, at least on these, because I will be linking them end to end. So there's a little connector kit and they easily link up. So here is my diagram from wall to wall. That's my box, and I kind of marked out the distance from the wall that I need to place each one of these blocks at, and I'm using my laser tape measure to make sure I get that correct. If you haven't gotten a laser tape yet, this is your sign. They're less than $50 and are unbelievably easy to use, extremely accurate. This one goes to 1/32 of an inch. It's the Bosch one. I'll link a link to it. But like, it is just unbelievable how much easier they make your life when you're measuring things. Even if you have someone to help hold the tape measure, sure as heck beats doing this nonsense, and the tape breaks in half on you, and it's just a real pain in the butt. I'm in the kitchen now, and the majority of our blocking is gonna go here behind the cabinetry. I'm not going too crazy with it. Anywhere I have a cabinet that is bridging 2 studs or more, I'm just gonna leave that and find studs, particularly on the base cabinets, because I don't really care about where the screw location is. I was more worried about the wall cabinets. They have a harder time fighting gravity than the bases. And then the pantries, to make sure that I have a ledger at the top so that the pantry doesn't tip over. With the wall cabinets, I definitely wanted to run blocking most of the way on the bottom edge of those. That way I can get the screws in more of an aesthetic location when we mount the cabinets, and it's not just like somewhere right in the middle of the flange where when you look up underneath you'll just see random screws. I'd like to keep them in the corners so they're a little bit more hidden. So I want to put blocking at the 54-inch mark where the bottom edge of those cabinets are going to be. Even though this is an interior wall, we still insulated it because it's technically a separated space from the garage, so these will be conditioned separately. And just like all the rest of my insulated walls, I'll be using some 3/4 inch ply to do the blocking as to not interfere with the insulation much. So I just batch cut a whole bunch of these blocking strips. I took measurements of each one, wrote them on there, and then did a whole bunch of pocket hole drilling. But really with the Craig jig, it really only took me like maybe less than 10 minutes to do all these pocket holes, which was really convenient. And I love that I don't have to fit a framing nailer in here now, especially that we have it all insulated. I did strategically wait till after the installation to do this, so we didn't have to fight all the blocking installing the insulation, considering there is like a 15-foot drop on the other side of this that we don't have access to. The key for this was that I had the cabinets all marked out in the locations. That way I could easily eyeball from above where the edges were and whether or not they were going to fall on studs. So obviously a place like here, I have the stove. I don't need any blocking at the first level, but I'm gonna have a range hood. That's what that box is for. So the center of my range hood has really no good backing. I'm gonna put a piece of blocking way up there and down here at the bottom. It's important to have a good vision of where everything's gonna be at the end of it so that we can put the blocking in the right spot. Like for example, that range hood, the bottom edge of it is not at the same height of the cabinets. I went into the manual of the Broen vent hood insert that we're using, and it's 24 to 30 inches above the stovetop is what it needs. Whereas the typical cabinets are only 18 inches above countertop height. So just things to think about. As always in construction, you gotta be thinking like 10 steps ahead or else you're gonna get bit.
Once again, the phone notes came in clutch for organizing all the measurements.
And there we go, kitchen cabinet blocking is in. I really like this technique rather than using full 2x material. It's just really easy to get these guys in here. I don't have to worry about hitting any wires with an errant framing nailer. It's really easy to get them in from the outside. It just barely compresses a little bit of this insulation to what I would consider to be a negligible amount, especially because this is basically an interior wall. Here's what I did for under cabinet lights. I just drill a hole in my blocking with plenty of leeway, and I just realized that I'm gonna have to come back and take these out and make a slightly larger hole up here. 55 inches is where I want this light, just into the bottom 1-inch flange of the cabinetry so that it's hidden. I'll notch out the bottom of the cabinet a little bit to accommodate that. So I am gonna raise this up just a hair, but this is also a good way to make sure the drywallers do not miss these things and just slap drywall over it. There is a defined place for those wires to come out. As far as positioning the wire this way, I also double checked where my wall cabinets were. So there's a 27-inch base pretty much right over top of this guy. And so I needed to make sure with my actual lights, our halo under cabinet lights, the wire could enter either through either end or it's actually offset to one side of our light. So in that case we can, and I have plenty of slack here. I have about 2 feet or so of slack in case we need to route it to one side of the fixture or the other. In the pantry, I ran a similar setup. We have 2 30x36 wall cabinets here and then a tall pantry right there. The base cabinet spans like 3 different studs, so I'm not worried about that. I'll just find studs. Next, we need to mess around with the backing on this niche. We initially had this framed as a 2x4 wall. Then we decided we would do a pocket door right here, which bumped it out to a 2x6 wall. So I reframed it and put this niche in the process because we didn't want to waste all the space in this beautiful 2x6 wall cavity next to our pantry. So we thought from the inside we could access this and use it as mason jar storage. However, on the outside we have floating shelves planned, 2 floating shelves that are pretty long. with some under cabinet lighting. That's what that wire's for. We have a little dry bar / coffee setup right here. So we need something sturdy to mount those shelves to, especially because we have a pocket door here, which cannot bear any of the weight of a floating shelf. Someone suggested this idea in a comment, and it was a thought that I had prior, but the comment confirmed it in my mind. I'm going to back this whole thing with 3/4 inch plywood, pocket screws all around the perimeter, and that should give me a really solid base to screw any sort of floating shelf brackets to. I'm just gonna go about like every 6 inches. Stay. And there she is. That went in pretty easy, and there are a lot of fasteners to hold it steady. I checked it with the 6-foot level, slight little bow in the middle, maybe a 1/4 inch at the most, and I probably would need to scribe a cabinet around it anyway, so I'm going to run with it. That looks great.
I cut out 2 more panels to do the same thing for our main bedroom closet wall, which I framed a niche on either side of the doorway. There's nothing to hang here, but we still need solid backing for the drywall.
I'm in the living room now. I want to talk about an area that we are not putting blocking consciously that you think we might want to. That's the TV. These are the boxes for like the HDMI and low voltage, as well as a receptacle for the television to mount here. And I'm not even going to bother because most TV mounts are built to span multiple studs. They have lots of slots in them, and I will just find studs on this. However, another major reason I'm not putting blocking in is because we'll eventually be doing a full built-in on this wall with an electric fireplace. It will incorporate the TV mount, so there's really no point in putting any extra wood in the wall here where we're just going to be building this out anyway. Another area like this where I've heard about putting blocking before, but I really just don't feel like doing it on our build, is where baseboard meets door casing. If your door casing is any wider than these 2 studs, which in most cases it is, there's a slim chance that your baseboard is going to land within nailing distance of these studs. Typically the end of that baseboard will be floating here. There's a couple ways to kind of get around this. Just put a dab of PL or some adhesive on the back of the baseboard. I guess you could even go as far as doing a little biscuit into the door casing to lock those 2 together and keep them nice and flush over time, keep the paint from cracking. But there's just a ton of locations where that situation happens, even in our small-ish build, and I just don't really want to bother with it right now. But I thought I would mention it in case it's something you might want to do. I'll probably use the glue method in combo with doing a couple angled finish nails into the drywall. I think that should hold. It'll be a good long-term experiment before we build the addition, and then I'll know for sure. Here's another piece of blocking that I changed from my original plan. I had 2 single gang boxes here for our main thermostat, which also controls the dehumidifier, as well as the ERV control. And then I realized that the ecobee Pro thermostat we have does not cover a typical single gang box. The ERV thermostat did, but the ecobee kind of assumes you just have a wire coming out of the wall like this, so that's exactly what I did. Just a piece of 3/4 inch plywood, a couple pocket screws, and we have ourselves a good solid mount for thermostats. Next, I'm going to put some support in our wall for our stair hand railing. I'm still going to use my tried and true 3/4 inch ply with, I'll use 3 pocket screws on each side for this guy. Traditionally, this is done with a 2x6, but being that this is a north side exterior wall, I'd like to keep as much insulation in the wall as I possibly can. And I feel the plywood blocking is plenty strong enough for a simple handrail bracket, so I'm gonna go with that. We'll see how it works out. Anyway, I have made a dot at the 32 inch mark above my tread, and I'm gonna go ahead and put a screw in there. I'm gonna snap a chalk line all the way up at the same angle. Then I will center my plywood blocking on that chalk line. I'm going to do something a little bit special on this railing, which is run an 18 gauge wire down below the stairs and hook that into some LED lights. I'm going to put that LED light strip on the underside of our stair hand railing to provide some night light accents on the stairs. We looked into some other solutions for this, like putting them in the risers, and they were just sort of cumbersome, it looked like, to install. It was a lot of work. I think if we just route out a little channel in the bottom of our handrail, we can get a cheap LED light strip, glue it in there, and we'll have ourselves a continuous night light up the stair railing, which we can time with a Christmas light timer or something similar plugged into the outlet underneath the stairs. So there's my bottom piece of stair handrail blocking. It's where the last support will go with the return. I really only needed blocking here at the bottom stair handrail. I'm gonna hit the studs going all the way up, but at the bottom here, because the stairs end right here, my handrail return is gonna be somewhere around right here. So I wanted to make sure that I could have some flexibility in putting that last support anywhere I needed to along the bottom of the run. Similar piece of blocking at the top of the stairs, same sort of deal. I'm gonna have a door casing here. So my return is going to be like right around here. Wanted to make sure that I had a good flexible spot for my last handrail support. This stud is a little bit close to where that return is going to be. This piece of blocking down here is a little bit of an experiment. We'll see if I end up actually needing it, but it is from where the stair skirt board transitions to the baseboard. That transition is floating. So either you have to glue it to the drywall or just nail it into the drywall like at an angle and hope that they don't pull out. So I decided to put that in with some pocket screws. We'll see if it does any good, but otherwise that baseboard could only be fastened to the sill plate at the bottom and the tops would be kind of floating. Here's a little frame of blocking I built around the back of our exterior hose bib. This is the only one that's fully contained in the wall. The two coming out of the utility room actually come past the plywood wall surface, so I can access those freely from the inside of the utility room. But I'm gonna put a 6x6 concealed flush mount access door here. It's not going to really help that much in the case that something would actually go wrong. I guess we could pull things straight out, but it'll at least give us a way to inspect this, make sure nothing's leaking on the inside of the wall, and maybe potentially do some future repair if something ever happened. This is an Aquar hose bib, stainless, very high quality, so I don't expect anything's ever really going to need to get replaced on this. And when the seals do wear out eventually in many, many years, they are replaceable from the outside. We're in the utility room now. I wanted to note some of the blocking that I have in here, which is around any pipe. I put a piece of 1x or 3/4 inch plywood to give the drywall something to fasten to on either side of the pipe so it's not totally floating. And this guy here and this guy are blocking for the future light strips that are going to be mounted there. This is a temporary light, but they have mounting holes in specific locations, so I made sure to put a piece of blocking at each location. The other one's kind of hidden right now under that Sega, but it's like right there. The light fixture will sit over top that box right there. That's all the blocking that we're putting in this house and that I can really think of to put in. After all the trim is done and everything is hung up and done in the house, we'll know if all the blocking was in a good spot and or if it was necessary, and we'll apply any lessons learned to the future build. Hopefully this video helped you if you're installing some blocking. As always, thanks for watching, and we'll see you on the next one.